Good evening. Well, it's evening time right now. I don't know what time it'll be when you're watching this video. We're back working on this 944 Safari car again, like usual. So right now we're at the stage where trying to get the torsion bars out of the rear end of this thing. And I got the caps cut off of the spring plates or spring tubes in the last video, which you saw. And these, I played around with it a little bit before I started recording here this evening. And these torsion bars are stuck in here pretty good. From what I could see online and looking through the instructions that came with the kit, should be able to just, pound them and slide one into the other to pop it out. I've been bashing on these with my mini sledge for a little bit, and then even went up to my big sledge, and they're not moving. Neither one of them are. I tried hitting it from both ways. I can't get either one of them to move. And I do have all the spring tension off of it, I believe. So what I tried to do, just using a old torsion bar that I have. This is one of the stock ones out of my 85 944 that I had kicking around. So I just cut the end of it off. Turns into a nice big punch. I can slide through my hole in the rocker and give that a good whack. And I can't get these to budge, so I think what I'm gonna do is end up dropping the whole rear end out of it and taking it apart the proper way. Taking the spring plates off and taking the torsion bars out that way. And also when I do that, I can drill the spring tube for a pin. So when I put this all back together, I can just put a pin through so the torsion bars can't work their way out. Not that I think they would. I would just like to eliminate the opportunity for them to do that. So what we're gonna do is I will show you how to drop the rear end out of one of these. It's pretty simple. Pretty much all you need to do is remove your CV shafts, take your brake calipers off, and you'll need to pop a clip on one of the brake lines that's on the trailing arm, and you'll have to drop the exhaust off, and then it's like 4 or 6 bolts to drop the whole unit out. It's pretty simple, just kind of big and awkward, but we'll show you how I'm gonna do it, and yeah, we'll be all good. We'll start working on getting this out of here. So because I'm still going back and forth on whether or not I'm actually gonna take this whole rear suspension carriage out, it's mostly because I'm being lazy and I really don't want to. I want to get some before numbers on where everything is on this, so if I do end up taking it out, I'm just going to get the torsion bars out, put it back in, put the new ones in, and index it. But one thing I want to do is I want to measure, I think I'm going to go from probably this lip on the hub down to the ground, just to see where we're at beforehand, and then when we do index it, because it'll push it down a little bit more, can see where we're at afterwards and kind of go from there with how much I need to index it and all that. So I'll take a quick measurement here. So we're right about 14.5 right on the dot from the ground to the bottom of that hub. So I'm just going to write this on here with some of the white paint. 14.5. So I'll do the same thing on the other side, and then we'll be able to figure out where we are when we put it back together, and I think that should help a little bit getting things where we need to go. Okay, so I'm really happy I tried to whack on these torsion bars a little bit more, because I was actually able to get it to move, and you can see this one is slid in there about an inch. I think it should still be in the splines. Oh yeah, it is. So you can actually see how rusty and kind of crappy those splines were, but so slid this one in about an inch. If we come around here to the other side, we can see that this guy has popped out, and this is why we have the hole in our rocker to pull it out. And there is our old torsion bar. So I'll grease up one of the new ones. I'll get that slid in there and try to play around with the indexing a little bit. I think what I remember is we want to go about 2 teeth, 2 more teeth of preload than what there was just at kind of a relaxed state. So play around with that and see what we get. Okay, so now that we got torsion bars out and on the bench, you can see from the old to the new, you know, the red one's our new one, this is our old one. Our new one is a lot thicker. This is a 30 millimeter bar. I think this is a 24 millimeter, something like that, the old one. I didn't measure it, but the one thing I did do is just eyeball our splines on the end to make sure our diameters match up, because they are different on both sides. So it looks like they do match up. So what I'm gonna do is, these are dry, there's nothing on them. I'm just gonna give these a good healthy coat of anti-seize, which should help it go in. And also, if I ever do go to take these out, they should come out a lot easier. So we're gonna just push it into all the splines on here. We're not gonna go too crazy. We don't need gobs of it in there, but you know, just a good even coat. It all covered. And I mean, these new torsion bars are red, so it's pretty much a race car now, right? Race red. At the very least, it'll make it go faster. That's my theory. So we'll get this other side coated up. I'm really happy I gave these another try. I soaked them pretty good with the penetrating fluid last night in hopes it would help loosen them up so that they would come out. So they had last night and all day today to soak and, you know, for it to really work in there, and I think that really did help. So yeah, we'll get this all coated up. We'll slide it back in. That looks pretty good. So let's go and slide this in the car, see what we come up with. Okay, so we got our new torsion bar here. We can just slide this right into the torsion tube. In theory. Okay. So this is going to be when I get super super covered in anti-seize and turn into the Tin Man, which is always a great time because that stuff just gets everywhere. So I'm gonna grab a pair of pliers really quick. So now I should be able to spin this, and I'm gonna get a punch. Okay, so let's see if we can just give this some coaxing to go back in. Give it a little turn. That looks good. Okay. I think she's going. So, this is where we got to think about how we're going to index this just a little bit more than what it was before. Let me just get this in a little bit further. Just make sure everything's going to line up good. Okay, so it will line up and everything will be good. I think what I'm going to need to do is push down on our torsion, or on our hub assembly a little bit, and try to get that index just a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to think about that a little bit and the best way to do that, and then yeah, bring you back in and show you what we come up with. But this is exciting. It's very exciting. So I've done some looking around, and what's preventing this trailing arm from going down any farther is the axle shaft is hitting the exhaust and preventing it from dropping down. Another thing that I did is I loosened up the other 3 bolts that were still on this retaining plate for the whole spring tube, and I was able to slide the spacer that goes in this bottom one down the rest of the way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just drop the exhaust down, and then hopefully I can swing this down, this hub and trailing arm down a little bit more to get the little bit more twist I need out of it to put some more preload on that torsion bar. So we'll zip the end of the exhaust off. It's just a nut and a nut on both sides of the muffler on the back. It's 13 mil. So we'll zip that off and go from there. All right, so did some playing around and I did some thinking on this, on how, just have the light fall over. But so I did some thinking and on how I'm going to get the indexing of these bars correct. So I did a lot of looking around online. There are a lot of formulas and stuff that you can do to figure out angles and how many degrees a spline will get you, and convert that to inches of lift or lowering, whatever way you're going. We're doing lift on this. I also had a thought. We are going to be lifting this thing 2 inches, okay, is the desired lift that we want. So to do that, we need to put more preload on the spring. So we're going with a thicker torsion bar than what we had. So I got to thinking, instead of doing all this math and all this other stuff, why not just add 2 inches of extra preload, or almost 2 inches of extra preload to our, spring by lowering this hub 2 inches from where it was before. So we were at 14 3/4 inches from the ground to the bottom of this boss. So I got thinking, what if I just swing this down another 2 inches, and that should, in theory, when everything is compressed and put back together, give us 2 inches of lift. So to do that, I took the exhaust off because it was hitting I lowered the exhaust because it was hitting the CV axle. But then I found I was maxing out the CV axle, and that was limiting how far down I could push this. So I popped the CV axle off. It's pretty easy. All you'll need is a triple square bit. This one was a 8mm triple square bit to remove the bolts that hold the CV axle right here to the hub. Pretty straightforward to take off. So now there's nothing limiting where this hub sits besides the friction from the bushings on our spring plate. So I can get on my bar here and push down on this, quite a bit. So even with just taking the torsion bar off, the CV axle off, this is already dropped to just about 13 1/16 of an inch. So I don't have to push this much farther down, and I'm probably not going to go the full 2 inches to bring it down to 12 3/4 because these bars are stiffer. They probably won't sag as much as the original bars. So I might just try to work this down to 13 inches or just under 13 inches and slide my bar back in and see what we get. So that would be effectively adding 1 3/4 inch, 1 7/8 of sag to this. This is not this might not be the proper math way to do it, but it's what kind of made sense in my head, so I figured I'd give it a try and see what happens. So I'm gonna just work this down a little bit more and then slide the bar back in just enough so I can engage the spline so it'll hold it. And then see where we're at and kind of go from there. But I just wanted to explain my thought process on this and what I came up with. So now we'll give it a try and see what happens. And then once I get both sides done, I'll probably set it on the ground and just see where it is, where it sets out. See what we had. Unfortunately, I did not take any measurements of the car on the ground beforehand to know how much lift we actually got. That was not super good on my part, but it's okay. We're just gonna eyeball it, and as long as the car looks kind of level, but it's not going to because there's no motor in the car, so maybe I'll just stand on the cross member or something and just see how it looks. But yeah, so let's get this down a little bit more, slide the torsion bar back in, see how we look. Alright, so I didn't get it on video on this side, but I did get the new torsion spring in. It was a big pain in the butt to get it to go, because these bushings on the spring plate in here are so worn that it allowed the whole tube to drop down. So what I ended up having to do is put a jack right under this to jack it up level so I could slide the bar straight in. And then doing that, I had to take the spare tire jack and put it kind of in here on top of the trailing arm and the body to push the trailing arm down to get my desired height of the hub. And unfortunately I overdid it just a little bit on this. I went about 2.5 inches instead of 2 inches of lift. So we're gonna see what happens. I already got the bar in and slid the old bar out on the other side. So I'll probably put the other side in the same and then put it back on the ground, see what it looks like, and if I need, I'll pound them back out and adjust it to the 2 inches and see how we look then. But yeah, this video is getting kind of long, so what I might do is I might cut it here, and then I'll start a new video to show putting the torsion bar in on the other side and what I had to do with that. Show you how I jack it, you know, here and there to get it aligned so it goes in. And yeah, so this will be it for this video. I got it kind of figured out now, which is really good. So we'll just keep going with this. We'll get going on the other side, put that back together. We'll get our measurements right this time. And we should be very, very close to putting this thing on the ground and seeing what it looks like with the lift. It'll sit a little funny because, like I said earlier, there's no motor in it, so the front will sit really high, but I might just set the motor in it because I have the motor sitting over there actually. I might just set it in the chassis to kind of balance everything out, and we'll get an idea of what it looks like then, which I'm really excited about. We're getting really close to wrapping up the suspension on this car, which is super duper cool. It's kind of good doing these YouTube videos because it keeps me somewhat on a schedule, because I want to try to put out a video every week or so, and it keeps me, you know, actively working on the car, which is really good. And my goal for this car is to have it done in time. Our local Porsche club, the Central New York region, has a concours at the local Porsche dealership. I think it's in July. And I really want to have this car done for that show, because I really want to take this to the show and just see what people think. I think some people will be like, what did you do? And then some people will think it's really cool, and then some people will probably just shake their heads and be on their way. So yeah, that's where we're at. Got one bar in, got one more bar to go, and then we'll be setting this thing on the ground. So look for the next video to be coming out on putting the torsion bars back in, the indexing, and kind of aligning everything up so it goes back together. So we will see you in the next one.